always been, passionate about representation in sport, and that's partly why I was able to. And I was the first black belt, and some people had seen as a woman first, I should say. My experiences as a martial artist definitely have influenced my understanding of security. And safety and security is a space that harmonizing those two elements as best I can. How do you balance being a parent and being a good leader in the professional side? And
Tara, welcome to the show. Great to have you join me today.
thank you so much for having me. It's good to meet you here.
Yes, it is. And I'm looking forward to, just simply exploring and having a great conversation with you about martial arts, security, and how that has, I don't know, well, changed your world and made you who you are today.
Yeah, it's definitely all connected together into who I am now, and um, partly who I've probably always been. But when you get to the destination, well, it's not quite the destination, but along this journey, you learn a lot of things, and you see how all your different experiences definitely kind of culminate and help you be who you are and who you're becoming as well.
Yeah. Yes. Love that. Love that. Well, let's kick off with, give me that introduction. Who are you and what's your primary focus in life today?
Well, it's a long it's a long answer, but I'll try and make it concise in a way that people can appreciate. So, I grew up. I should start with saying that I am American, but I am Haitian descent, and I have done martial arts my entire life. And it is a big part of who I am. It's a major part of my identity. All of those factors coming together. And being in the martial arts world, there's a lot of different things that go into it. There's, the sporting side, there's also the, values and traditions and all of those components. And so I really am a big proponent of, seeing how martial arts can be a part of people's worlds. And so I've done a lot from childhood to adulthood to what I do now, to try and advocate for sports, not just for martial arts, but for sports more generally. But because I saw what it did for me as a child and how it really affected my development in a really positive way, but also how the mental, spiritual, and physical connection really can be transformative. I've always been a huge advocate for that. And because of that connection to my identity, I've also, been a huge advocate for helping those in need and those who can benefit from improving, having access to different opportunities. So I've been involved with a number of sports initiatives, foundations, all kind of different things. I've competed on the international level for martial arts. But what I actually would say is it's such a powerful journey. There's so many connecting issues to the sports side as well as the mind, body, and spirit side that I'm very proud to see how that's come into my world in the security space, and I can tell you more about that. I do officially. I held the title of Renchi, but I prefer Sensei or Tara because I think being a teacher is a big part of the martial arts world and a big part of who I am, and being able to teach and share. And I'm happy to share more, of course.
Wonderful. That's there's already so many interesting parts that you've covered there, and I'm going to start with the end point there. And you mentioned the name, but you also sensei. Now you've been doing a style of karate for what, over 20 years. You've been
Oh
competing.
yeah, way, way over. Let's just go
Well,
with that.
I'm just saying over 20. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
counting
yeah.
beyond that. Yeah, that sounds
That's
good.
good.
That
That's
sounds
good.
good. And so when you say, so you're like a teacher, to me sensei means, well, it must be someone, who's super senior, that like this is someone who really has a lot of students that you teach, but also instructors that you probably teach.
Yeah.
Is that a good understanding?
That is. And, it's interesting as you go through your martial arts journey, and everyone has a different martial arts journey. So I think, and I would say also that there's a different type of martial art for everyone, because I would encourage every person to do martial arts, no matter who you are, of course. Um,
Why would you encourage everyone to do martial arts?
I think it's such a powerful mind body connection, and again, like I mentioned, there's a sporting side, but there's also that kind of being really in tune with your body and the whole facets. Being personally self aware and being able to defend yourself is a core component for me. I think the sporting side is really something that you're seeing more and more expansion of. I remember when I was younger, you didn't see as many women at different levels of martial arts. And now there's a lot more competitive martial arts styles. There's different, there's something for everyone kind of in the martial arts world, I would say. And so I think it's a neat way for people to be connected with their bodies, but also to kind of build that self-awareness. So there's multiple dimensions to what you can, benefit from, whatever kind of athlete you might be or not.
So you started, so you started karate. We're saying over 20 years ago, but then I guess, what was your journey into karate? Did you grow up in a family that you know was truly into, I'll say, combat sports or self defense? Was that something that, an environment in which you grew up in, or was it something that occurred through a different way?
Good question. So actually, yes, I grew up in a family of martial arts. My father is a martial artist, and he's actually the founder of this group called the United Federation of Martial Arts. But back in the early days, he had his karate school, and I would go there every day, of course. And I started off as the little toddler waddling around, and then had to, you know, you, when you're the teacher's child, you have to behave in such a way. So I had to fall in line pretty quickly. so so I, at an very early age, have been running around the dojo, and being part of the community and learning from so many incredible people from all over the world. It's been a true I feel very fortunate for that experience and grounding, and having a family that really was instrumental in helping develop martial arts in a lot of communities, and also making impact on me as their child.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. So it's like you grew up. If your dad's there running the, I guess the dojo, if I say it in that way,
Karate
and
school
you,
dojo.
yeah, and so you were there, I guess, learning, growing up in that environment. It was only natural for you to continue to get to a level where you could compete, and now it continues to be part of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's really kind of the trajectory. And I've always been, passionate about representation in sport, and that's partly why I was able to compete internationally and represent my heritage, and that was a really powerful experience. And I think that is something that's you see in moderns, a lot of sporting communities now, and I think it should be celebrated. The opportunity to really look at sport and that the sporting community at those higher levels, but also the journey part to how do you get there and what do you do after. So I really appreciate the work that you do, because I think it is about building life. It's all about carrying legacy. It's all about shared experiences and shared communities. So for me, that's all kind of built and baked into the practical elements of the hard training, and all that kind of stuff that goes into it too.
And so, at what point did you start to say to yourself, "Hey, I really want to compete. I want to represent, more than just me, more than perhaps just the family." When did something like that first occur to you?
Oh, I would say when I was a child, and it's interesting because for example, karate is not in the Olympic. Well, it was once, but anyway, I won't go down those routes. But I did always have kind of an aspiration to do something on a grander scale that way, but it really was more about the representation of good for me. That's always kind of been at the heart of it. Not necessary, winning is great, and that's an important part of the athlete condition. But I think for me, it's a lot about the values and what it can represent and how it can really affect communities to bring like awareness and bring attention to things. Like I've always that kind of always resonated with me, is how do you bring opportunity through this beautiful thing that I've been gifted, is what it feels like. So how do
Yeah.
we be transformative with it? And so I think I've always kind of felt that.
Right. And so the competition, in fact, I'll say not even the competition, but the development, the mastery of the martial art was, I guess, central to you. It was this. That's what really kept you going. I'm fascinated then about this. You talk about the impact that it has on communities and how, I guess, it's helped you to drive that impact. But I just want to ask, without the Olympics, what is competition in karate? What does that world look like?
Well, nowadays it's a very big world, and there's all kind of international leagues, all kind of international associations. There's a lot, and so again, there might be something for everyone built into that. There's different governing bodies, all kind of stuff that goes into the wider
Right.
martial arts world. It's not a homogeneous world by any stretch, and the histories are all interwoven and all that kind of stuff. But I think, what goes into the competitive spirit, there's a lot of commonality, and that, it's a drive. You're pushing yourself and you want to sharpen your blade against the best. So whoever you're competing with, whatever, under whoever's, association, it's about improving that skills that you've been, honing in on, and really making sure that you're challenging yourself, but also preparing yourself for whatever situation might come out. The sporting side has a lot of really exciting elements. It can be a fun way to explore your skills, but also an opportunity to kind of build relations and really represent yourself, represent the people that you are associated with.
And so for you, what was that competitive edge? Where did it take you? And how did you feel at your proudest moment?
Honestly, my proudest moments are when this is a good question, because my proudest moments are when I've had the opportunity to travel internationally. And I was the first black belt, and some people had seen as a woman first, I should say, first black female woman black belt. And that was really, for me, actually even more powerful sometimes than um, competitions, because you realize just how much more the sport can grow and how much more the community can grow, and what it means to people. I still like have like this feeling of wow. It was like a very strong, impactful feeling of um, meeting. This happened in a couple of places, but there was this one community. It was in Africa, um, where it was a small town, and I remember one of the girls came to me and she was like, she was training and she was a junior belt, and she was like, I just never, I've never met someone like you before.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
it took me aback. And I've always kind of carried that with me,
Mm.
realizing that, you don't take these skills for granted, and you don't take, working hard, and you just can't take it for granted. And you always remember that you can make an impact on someone even in a short time. And that is something that's a heavy responsibility. And
Yeah.
that to me is almost as good as winning any high level achievement. That's actually worth
Yeah.
more in some ways.
Yeah. Well, like you say, you're standing for so much more. We talk so much about role models and being an example to others. And so for you to get the wonderful opportunity to compete overseas, and then recognize. I guess you perhaps you didn't, at least initially, you wouldn't have really recognized the impact you were having by turning up overseas and being that one of the first black female black belts in the sport. That's quite amazing. How do you?
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty out there before me. Let me be clear. There's many, many. I
Yeah,
have some that I've looked up to in my life, but I think, it's the access to being able to
yes.
see people like you, and
Well,
that's the
well,
part that's changed.
yeah.
Hopefully,
Well, you see, and I think that's the bit. And yeah, I don't mean the first ever, but it's
right, right,
as you talk about going on the scene and that competitive scene, you sort of creating this environment, and you would still be someone who's standing out, and so you've seen more and more people looking and going, oh wow, hey, well, that's okay, I can keep going, I can go ahead and I can achieve that. And
yeah,
it probably inspires not just people of color, but anyone who at any point feels, oh, no one else looks like me. Well, she's different, and she's different. He's different. Okay, well, that means that I can go up there and I can be different as well.
yeah, exactly. And that was part of the impetus of why I had started this group called Faces of Martial Arts, was to try and broaden those perceptions of what martial arts is, who it's for, what it's all about. And I think there's a lot of there's a typical thing that comes to some people's mind, at least primarily in my area of the United States. You hear often remarks of, wow, I would not expect someone like you to do martial arts. And you're
Yeah,
like, okay, I mean,
yeah.
why
Well,
not,
yeah.
but okay.
Well, that's it, and that's where you kind of get to this first or preeminent. It's being the first that many are going to see, and so I'm curious then about then this, like you said, sorry, faces of martial arts, and as you, I guess, as one of the founders or the founder of that whole, well, I'll say movement, but correct me, tell me, what is it, and what is it, what sort of impact is it seeking to have?
Yeah, so it is something that I have had the pleasure to work with a lot of amazing martial artists on, and get their stories. And the focus of it was to gather and try and capture different story elements of martial artists at all different stages of their paths, and to understand how it's affected them and their communities. And we've held workshops, we've done some different initiatives with different communities to really kind of spread martial arts love and experience positive impact, but also to understand that individual capability of what can you achieve as an individual martial artist, and what does that mean for you and your journey. And so sharing the stories and sharing that it's not just one atypical type of person that does martial arts, it's a diverse range of people from all types of backgrounds, especially underrepresented groups that do martial arts. And the history of martial arts is very wide and vast, and it comes from so many countries, and a lot of legacy lives and is just untold of the martial arts world. And we only hear just a tiny fraction of what the martial arts really means. And I think that's where I love seeing, and there's a lot of other groups that are advancing martial arts in a positive way through all kind of global places. And I actually really commend the work that my dad is doing with United Federation of Martial Arts and spreading some of that as well. And there's a lot of groups, like I'm saying, that are slowly, I think, helping to change that
Hmm.
perception. And I will say that for me, doing this work and on the martial arts in the karate space is is very resonant to what I also do in my other professional work.
Yeah.
And it's breaking barriers, and breaking sport barriers sometimes really transcends just doing the physical component. It's the life components as well.
Hmm.
And so that's partly what was behind the impetus of doing the Faces of Martial Art project, to really
Well,
show the range of what all of those facets really mean.
and so, I mean, which I think is noble, and I think it's so good. You're talking about that. I think it's fantastic. So, why? Why is there a need for faces of martial arts?
I think there's a need because, there's still a lot of underrepresented spaces. I think we could always build and do more, especially for people of color all around the world, and seeing their reflection in the highest places and the lowest, medium, however you want to call it, places. I think we all deserve to be represented everywhere, regardless of who we are. But I think in the media and in a lot of um, the communications that people have access to, you very much see a kind of a singularity type of person when you associate it with martial arts. If I were to ask you, like, think of a martial artist, my guess is you wouldn't think of someone who looks like me.
No, goodness, no, no,
um,
'cause only because you're not in Karate Kid. So that, that's where I go. Did I go the wrong?
right.
Did I go the wrong place? No. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. After a decade of living in Hong Kong, I should really have mentioned Bruce Lee, but no, I go there. So
That's usually the first go-to for a lot of people. For me.
yeah. Well, look, I mean, you're right. You're right. In terms of, and as I was looking ahead of this conversation, you see the different faces, the different ethnicities, the different individuals that participate in martial arts, and it is like, yeah, that makes sense, and
Yeah.
perhaps it's as much a celebration rather than sort of this need to say, hey, look over here as well, but it's
Right.
recognizing the diverse cultures that exist in sport.
Exactly. Exactly. We're not a monolith, but there is so much to celebrate, so
Yeah,
much to exchange, so much to just learn from one another.
yeah. So when you were growing up, I have to assume, knowing that karate is not a professional sport, right? You don't sign a 10-year, $120 million contract
I've had
with
the
with
dream, but
karate.
no, we don't.
Yeah, one day, and it's not too late, Tara. It is not too late. Um, so, but so as you were growing up, and you think then, okay, so karate was a fabric of your life, fabric of your identity and your community. From, I'll say, a different career or professional career, what were you aspiring to as you grew up?
Mm. I think for me, I've always aspired to be there for communities that are in need. And that means communities that might be suffering conflict, suffering challenges of, a variety of fashions. And I've always been someone that has been driven to look at root causes of challenge, of issues that can be anything from a community suffering with lack of access to healthcare, lack of access to food, or all kind of different things. And there, every community, whether it's in the U.S., other countries, everywhere, there's communities of need, and they may be affected by a variety of things, whether it's a natural disaster, human human challenges, and all of that. And I've always been want to be someone that supports those transitional points for those communities, or trying to support whatever the need is there. And so I've studied international development, and I actually did my master's, where I focused on sports and being an agency for women, looking at a lot of different ways that sport can be beneficial to communities, empowering women, and giving them, different ways to not only be leaders, but also to be strong contributors to their communities, to support the improvement of those communities all around the world. And so I looked a lot about that. I've
So,
also.
what
Mhm,
does talk to me? What does that mean? Cast your mind back to that thesis that you wrote.
mhm.
Sport as an agency or as a change agent for women. What do you mean by that? Or what did you find?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting, though, because back when I did it, sport was, a fairly new part of the international development space. It was becoming its kind of own thing, and now it's kind of a fully fledged
Oh,
thing within
yeah.
in the development and humanitarian space, which I think is wonderful. And a lot of things have blossomed from those early days. But for me at the time, there was a lot of information about women peacekeepers and how they were able to de-escalate situations more effectively than their male counterparts, and what that really means when there's conflict. And conflict can stem from, small issues to large, massive issues. And so if we can address some of those root causes or de-escalate situations, we can have, more effective communities sometimes. And so for me, it really was looking at that, and looking at that intersection of how do we make communities um, improve their well-being in a holistic way, but also how do we reduce violence. And I
Mhm.
think women having agency and access, we see that women are such pinnacle figures all across the world, and if we can invest in women, there's so much change that can happen. And so for me, that was a big issue that I was passionate about. And because of my martial arts background, I've seen it from my own eyes, how martial arts can transform someone's experiences, um, and the power of being able to de-escalate but having the power to defend when you need to. All of those kind of dynamics was important to me through that process. And so that's where community development, international development, however you want to look at it, I really was keen on that, because it's giving people the tools to improve their mind, their body. And if you can improve those factors, you're going to be at your peak to be able to be a successful contributor to your community, and hopefully therefore everyone working in harmony to be able to support each other um, as they navigate, improving outcomes. So if you have women who are strong leaders in the community, you might have investments in different parts of, whether it's education, or you're seeing improvements in transportation and roads and development, all those little things that we, that underpin when I'm saying community or development. I'm talking about the fabrics, the intricacies that really build strong communities.
It's a fascinating space, and I love your approach on the topic, and it's using, well, one, how do you, given who you are and given what you know, how do you have the best possible impact on your surrounding or your environment and your community? And your upbringing through sport, and in particular through karate and the karate school, you see that from probably not an aggressive approach, but like you say, to defend, and martial arts as a way to defend. And as you've matured and studied and moved forward, I'm interested to see how that started to, move towards the formation of that collective security group. What was the inspiration behind that? How, what's the story there?
It's a beautiful story, I'll be honest. So I have a partner. Me and her co-founded Collective Security Group, and what I'll tell you from my side of the journey is that um, my experiences as a martial artist definitely have influenced my understanding of security. And safety and security is a space that um, comes with a lot of dimension, just like a lot of things in the world. But it's also got a lot of underrepresentation as well, and a lot of areas for improved collaboration, improved exchange of how to do things and approaches. Um, and having worked a lot in the humanitarian development space, I remember, and I've shared this story previously to some people, where like you don't realize how much the sector needs people who understand the human side of things when it comes to safety and security, and how we're starting to see some transitions around the safety and security community. And what I mean by that is there is kind of this historical trend you've seen primarily in the humanitarian development space, where it's very militant to work on security issues. and it comes and it's because of the nature of how the birth of that part of the sector. But what you found is you didn't find as many women, you didn't find as many um, different experiences. You found very kind of more um, militant or military background, law enforcement types. And there's a lot of good things about those experiences and people who come from those backgrounds that are still really, really critical to what we do in the sector today. But for me, through the evolution of that, without going through all of the details and all of the historical underpinnings of safety and security, to say that where I've been so fortunate to be exposed to that world from people who recognized my skill sets and said to me, basically, this is the type of thing we need in the safety in the humanitarian NGO safety and security space. You're doing a lot of that, and it was a nice awakening moment to be able to translate a lot of things I'm passionate about and a lot of things I've been advocating for so many years into something that's really needed in a space that I actually also care about, and doing it in a way that can really bridge my worlds. And so I've taken a lot of my martial arts experiences, my hands-on being, I've often, helped people through different situations when they're preparing to travel or things like that. How do you make sure you're self-aware? That's a big part of martial arts. How do
Hmm.
you improve your surroundings, build your strength, that mind, that mental and physical awareness? And so all of that kind of feeds into my ability to translate it and help people in being safe and proactive. So there's those values that I've carried through the martial arts really inform how I think about safety and security for organizations and individuals. And it also has helped me be able to respond to people in their unique, challenging moments. So working with my partner on Collective Security Group, we realized that the sector needed something new,
Yes.
and there's a lot of new happening, but we wanted to do our new,
What
and
What
bring
made you
all of these
think?
kind of things together.
Which is great. So, what made you? What made you? Why you? What made you think you? What were the skills then that people saw to bring across into this sector from martial arts into this security world? Why you? What skills are so valuable?
Well, for me, I think the ability to tap into the mental and the physical is something that's really key there. Okay, so when we're thinking about safety and security, there's a lot of holistic elements that go into it, especially nowadays. It's you know, feeling safe is so important, right? But how do you get to feel safe? What gives you the sense of safety? And so I carry some of those similar traits of how do you protect yourself in the martial arts sense in a way that allows people to unlock for themselves their own personal defense mechanisms. And that's something that, I spend time talking to people about their specific case. And so there's a lot of work we're doing with other great groups also on things like the person-centered approach in safety and security, which is a big thing for me and collective security group and really advancing, because something we hope to see build further in the safety and security space is that understanding of individual risk, individual needs. And I have long felt that connective tissue in the martial arts side is individual needs, individual dynamics, and how do you improve your skills for yourself, and how does that translate then to you being able to interact with others, and build your confidence. And so it's similar in that how do you operationally approach something like that as an organization, as individuals, and it's there's a lot of nuance and a lot of detail, and I probably can't unpack it all in this,
No,
but
but what I'm hearing is, so I now envisage you in the karate school teaching, well, even the instructor. So it's like train the trainer, but so teaching instructors, teaching the participants, the students on their safety, becoming aware of their body, becoming aware of their environment and reach, range, movement, things like that that could be happening around them. And it sounds like what you have done or are doing is you're picking up those skills and you're translating that into everyday life. So,
Yes.
okay, someone's in the gi, or sorry, someone's dressed, ready to do karate, and then you, sure that gets them in that mindset. But what you're now doing is picking that up and taking that across to someone who's in a t-shirt and or is in a suit and says, right, what does it mean for you to become aware, to start to sense these things, to think about your own safety?
Exactly. That's it. That is a big part of it. It's
Mm.
giving people the tools to unlock doors for themselves and giving them the agency and the power to walk through the doors they would like to walk through, and preparing them for the ones they have to walk through. And it's really helping people add to their toolbox, because even once you've got a toolbox, it's important to continue to
It's
add
the
to
whole,
them.
I've got a
Keep
bag of
checking on
tools.
them.
Yeah, I got a bag of tools. I never use them. No, that's it. That's not
We
me.
gotta take them out sometimes.
Yeah, that's it. That's what my wife does, and I wait for my boys to grow older, and maybe that's what they will do. So I'm very comfortable with that. Yeah,
Well, it is important to build legacy, so we gotta pass it on to our little ones too.
yes, very true. And so for you then, that toolbox, that toolkit that you give to on, you're picking up from your experience in martial arts, and you're giving that to individuals and corporations to be able to set themselves up for success, safety, meaning safety, security in that regard. I really like that. It's like you've decoded one of the important aspects of martial arts, and you're able to now share that with I'll say, the rest of the world.
I mean, I will not take full credit for that,
I love it. I
but
took it. No,
you
no.
know.
Tara, you quoted, trademarked. This is what Tara's done. I mean, I tell you, the reason why it's so fascinating is a lot of what we're doing now, but also in this show, is about learning from athletes. So this is about finding the steps. I know it's all about career clarity and career transition, but it's picking that up from stories of people like yourself, from athletes, and sharing that with the broader population, because we know we go through it. We know that we're looking to see how can our athletic skills help us in the rest of our lives. And
Absolutely.
that for us, it unlocks action, it brings agency, it makes us do these things. And I see how that can help others. I see how that can help family, my community, and have such a positive impact. So hence that's why I recognize it so much in what you're doing.
Oh, and that's why I appreciate what you do, because I have two daughters who are very skilled athletes, and they have high ambition to make it all the way to the highest levels of their sport, track and gymnastics, as it stands. And they're both highly committed. And what I recognize in them, and hope I'll see and I appreciate when I hear from other athletes, is that mental strength piece, and being able to build that. And it takes a community to do that. And I think, understanding that, like you mentioned, there are different transition points in your sporting journey, and being able to appreciate that at different stages. And I think something that I would just echo what I recognize in others, and something I say for myself, is your sporting journey doesn't have to end. It may, as you say, transition or translate, and you then become uh, the next generation's leader and helping them forge their future, or you translate those skills into something else. I think all of that is extremely valuable, and the more that we can do that, I think that creates new opportunities. That's where you start to see, the pace of sports really expand. It takes its own shape in a new way, and I think that's a beautiful thing to hear, that you're, even after the highest levels of achievement, there's so much more. There's still so much more. You don't just get to the mountaintop, you keep climbing, and so for me, I love something like this. And this is something I would encourage my kids to listen to, because I want them to recognize that, yes, I achieved the highest. They want to go to the Olympics, go to the Olympics, get there. But when you're there, and you feel like your body is in a different place, that doesn't mean it's over. And so that's something I I definitely am a big fan of appreciating.
Well said. It's certainly not over. It's like you say, it's that next goal, that next opportunity, and it's still
Right.
you. What can you as a person achieve next? Um,
Exactly.
again, so it's super powerful. And so when I like the way that you bring those two parts of your life together, and that continues, right? So
Absolutely.
it's not over. So what's next? What's that next summit for you?
Yeah. Well, I'm so proud of the work we're doing at Collective Security Group. So very proud. It's such an opportunity to bring minds together to really tap into the safety and security space, build improved and strengthening our practices in that community, so that we can affect other communities. But I am also really proud of what that means for people in need right now. Helping anyone through a challenging circumstance or situation. We know that, people face a variety of circumstances, and being able to actively support someone through threats or other issues, or help with the prevention side is our favorite part. All of those things are part of my journey ahead, and to continue to help people and organizations. But even that, I think it's also trying to be a good, responsible sports parent, alongside the professional development. I want to keep breaking down barriers that may exist, or continue to build bridges where they do exist, to help people be aware of the what we can do in the safety and security side of things, and how important it is for everyone to understand safety and security for themselves and for their organizations. But as a mom, I want to help make sure that I'm harmonizing those two elements as best I can. Of how do you balance being a parent and being a good leader in the professional side? And so I think my summit is never ending. It's
No,
gonna be a continued balancing journey.
well, that's right. And look, the Earth keeps spinning. So as soon as you achieve one thing, the next horizon appears right in front of you. And like you say, I don't know when it ends or if it ends, but being blessed
Right.
with children means there's even more to consider and to grow
Oh yeah.
as an individual. Ourselves. Never mind them, but we keep learning as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that gives me energy is, wow, I have this huge opportunity to follow their journeys, but to hopefully be, a positive impact where they need it.
Yes. Yeah. So look, Tara, when you think about athletes, certainly who you know when they look at or perhaps they're not even aware, but how would you help an athlete start to recognize the impact that they could have on their community based on, coming from a love and some sense of achievement from their sport?
Oh, I love this question because I think sometimes we miss the things that are in front of us, or we're not ready to grab them. Um, because even for myself, when I think about martial arts, and you have that thing you're good at, right? Or that thing that's always been a part of you. So if it's basketball or soccer or whatever your thing is, or football, it's, it is a thing that you hold and you wonder, is that it? I'm just good at that. And then no, and sometimes it's okay to just accept it in that time. And there's a time and there's a place for when you might need to tap those things. And I think I would encourage people to appreciate where you are in your journey. And when you can appreciate where you are and recognize that there are different stages, that gives you that kind of anchor to keep going. And I say that because when you look at something and you're like, well, I'm really good at this, but what happens if I'm injured? What happens if all these things I can't control? Well, what is it that you loved? What was it? What is the thing that drives you? There's a reason you're doing it. And is that reason something that you can convert? Is that thing something you can do um, without doing it? And what I mean by that, in martial arts, we talk about thinking without thinking, okay? And essentially, it's what is that hidden drive, like what is pushing the pedal for you, and really looking into that. And then maybe you're going to find that actually you can use that in other parts of your life, and let the pedal, you can move your little key and it opens other cars, and you can drive other cars, but it started from the place that you got it from. And so I think it's understanding the little engine behind you. And for some people it's that physical endorphin push,
Mm.
and maybe you have to do it in a different way. But for other people it's that mental achievement, and I think all of those things are okay. It's just, translation.
And for those listening, because I thought that was, I like that. I like that concept of, well, sometimes it's right in front of you, and either you're too busy or perhaps you're not ready to see it. And it also gives a sense of patience by, saying it will come. You got to kind of believe it. You can play around, you can try different things, but there's a belief you also need that it will come again. You can find that next passion or pedal to push.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so true. I mean, I've had people wish things for me, and I appreciate it. And it stays with you when you have people cheering you on and having all these desires for you, but you have to be able to do it at your pace.
Yes. So when you think now, I suppose I'm curious about how, what's a great way for people to follow the movement. So be it around collective security, be it around that, even the faces of martial arts. What's a great way for others to perhaps reach out or get involved?
Yeah, people can check out collectivesecuritygroup.com. People can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's probably good. Um, or, people can definitely find Faces of Martial Arts. The website is facesofmartialarts.com as well. And I would encourage people to take time for themselves in these moments, and just really be reflective. I would encourage people to consider getting into the martial arts. I would encourage people, if I know, the work that I mentioned, United Federation of Martial Arts is doing some great things across the world as well. But there's a lot of great organizations operating out there and across spaces, and I would be a champion of those who are advancing good values, and making good positive impact. So if people have other good examples of that, I'm always a fan of learning and hearing more too. I'm very collaborative, hence Collective Security Group, me and my partner, being, passionate about that. But I'm a big fan of how can we work together. So
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Tara, I want to say thanks very much for bringing your perspective to the podcast, to the show, and to this audience. And I've really enjoyed our conversation. Look forward to certainly
likewise.
keeping in touch.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to be here with you. Thank you for all you do as well.